done tomorrow, means yesterday.
One we have done yesterday.
Translation देखो ना, ब्रह्मा जी concentrating on the विषय रूप में, कैसे करेंगे? ये दिखता नहीं, ये महान वस्तु है। Two is over now. Yesterday second is over.
We also read 2 yesterday, is it?
Yeah. Two is over. Brahma is concentrating on Vishnu. Actually, that we have used that word for Shri Shukovacha. That only we have done. Yeah, you do translation after. Translation क्या करते हैं? Translation करोगे तारा पूरा पर्पस जो है ये पर्पस नहीं है translation for this one no Shri Shukova and from this one possibly prior to the manifestation of cosmos by Brahma by meditating ये हो गया so this is first law so today we are going to do second one. Second क्या? Second है the way of presentation of the Vedic sound is so that we believe that it is direct the intelligence of people meaningless thing. So it should not happen.
So there's 2.
Yes.
Jai. Kali Yuga. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pradadanaranjana Yashodanandana Pradadanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanasari Yamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi, Dayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Privrajagacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Sivat, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Skandi Biti, Founder Acharyas Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Samavata Bhakti Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jainita Gaura Pimanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Taksurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jata Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhanvitam Sya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namos Taptakam Sanagaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Taram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Utamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasayalokasya Dhanyam Swasayanam Mahad. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Hare Krishna, welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We are reading from Canto number 2, chapter number 2, text number 2. Right. Okay. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha yan namabhir dhyayati dhir aparthai. Paribramam tatra na vindate arthan maya mayi vasanaya shayana. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha yannamabhir dhyayati dhir aparthai. Paribramam statra na vindatirtan maya maye vasanaya shayana. Shabdasya hi brahmana esa pantha yannamabhir dhyayati dhir aparthai. Paribramam statra na vindatirtan maya maye vasanaya shayana. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha yannamabhir dhyayati dhir aparthai. Paribramam statra na vindatirthan maya maye vasanaya shayana.
Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha
Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha
dhyayati dhira parthe
Yanamabhirdhyayati dhira partai
Paribrahmastrastra na vidante thana
Paribramam statra navindatirtan
Maya maye vasanaya sayana
Maya maye vasanaya shayanaha Shabdhasya in the Vedic sound, he certainly Brahmanaha of the Vedas, Eshaha, these, Pantaha, the way, yet, what is, Namabihi, by different names, Dhyayati, ponders, Dihi, intelligence, Aparthai, by meaningless ideas, Paribrahman, wandering, Tatra, there, Na, never, Vindate, enjoys, Arthan, realities, Maya Maye, in illusory things, Vasanaya, by different desires, Shayanaha, as if dreaming in sleep. A translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Kindly repeat after me. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls, hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures. But actually, they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Report. The conditioned soul is always engaged in laying out plans for happiness within the material world, even up to the end of the universal limit. He is not even satisfied with available amenities on this planet Earth, where he has exploited the resources of material nature to the best of his ability. He wants to go to the moon or the planet Venus to exploit resources there. There's not enough resource on this planet, we have to go to other planets. But the Lord has warned us in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16, about the worthlessness of all the innumerable planets of this universe, as well as those planets within other systems. There are innumerable universes and also innumerable planets in each of them. But none of them is immune to the chief miseries of material existence, namely the pangs of birth, the pangs of death, the pangs of old age, and the pangs of disease. The Lord says that even the topmost planet known as Brahmaloka or Satyaloka and in bracket, and what to speak of the other planets, like the heavenly planets, is not a happy land for residential purposes due to the presence of material pangs, as above mentioned. Conditioned souls are strictly under the laws of fruitive activities, and as such, they sometimes go up to Brahmaloka and again come down to Patalaloka, as if they were unintelligent children on the merry-go-round. The real happiness is in the kingdom of God, where no one has to undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, the Vedic ways of fruitive activities for the living entities are misleading. One thinks of a superior way of life in this country or that, or on that planet or another. But nowhere in the material world can he fulfill his real desire of life, namely eternal life, full intelligence, and completely bliss. Indirectly, Srila Shukadeva Goswami affirms that Maharaj Parikshit, in the last stage of life, should not desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly planets, but should prepare himself for going back home, back to Godhead. None of the material planets, nor the amenities available there for living conditions is everlasting. Therefore, one must have a factual reluctance to enjoy such temporary happiness as they afford. Translation again, the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdom. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Yes. This is the hard lesson to learn in the material world. What is that hard lesson? That there is no happiness. There's no happiness to be found in the material world. And as long as we are not fully convinced, then we will not become fully resolute in our determination to take up a spiritual life that will allow us to actually get out of the material world. So this is, of course, described also in the Bhagavad Gita, from the highest planet in the material world to the lowest planet. Living entities are constantly, due to the bewilderment of the material nature, due to the influence of the modes of material nature. So it means, as long as we are connected with these modes of material nature, then we will continue our our existence here in the material world. And Prabhupada again, as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, that an intelligent person is always keeping in the forefront the four basic miseries of life: birth, death, old age, and disease. And we should not be planning to go to other planets thinking that things will be better there. We are all destined to be in different places. We are all actually living out in different ways the result of our previous activities, karmic activities, and these are very basic, important lessons in the Bhagavad Gita. The 5 tattvas that are described in the Bhagavad Gita, if we understand them properly, of the 5, only one is temporary, means karma, isn't it? So our problem is creating karma. As long as we are not understanding and accepting this reality that we are actually we have nothing to do with this material world, as long as we are remaining connected with these modes of material nature, we continue to create karma, and therefore we are forced to remain in this material world. So it means that one has to become very determined to get out of this what is called the Wheel of Samsara, isn't it? What is the Wheel of Samsara? This unending, continuous repetition of birth and death in this material world. Learning the process of how to stop reincarnation, isn't it? Most people don't even know about reincarnation. But once we begin to understand, then the perfection of life is to, of course, perfection of life is to develop our love for Krishna, which, if we do that automatically, will stop this repetition of birth and death in the material world. And that is by, as nicely explained, this whole chapter 14 in the Bhagavad Gita is explaining this point. Krishna is telling Arjuna the more you actually know or understand about my nature, my transcendental nature, that is referred as param. What is param? Just like living entities described as the para, superior, prakriti. We're still prakriti. So what is meaning of prakriti? Yes, means subordinate. Sometimes prakriti does not only mean material. Isn't it? Generally, we speak of prakriti, material nature, material energy. That is prakriti. But we are also prakriti. But we are para prakriti. Material nature is subordinate, is created by the Lord. We are also created as living entities as subordinate. So we are also prakriti, but we are para prakriti. But we are prakriti, means we are subordinate. So Krishna is explaining in that 14th chapter, Param Bhuya Pravakshami, my dear Arjuna, I will now again speak to you. Is constantly coming back to this point of explaining this transcendental subject matter, param, transcendental subject matter. Param bhuya pravakshami jnanam jnanam uttamam. Of all knowledge, this is the topmost knowledge, jnanam, of all knowledge, the most sublime knowledge I will again speak to you. Jnanam jnanam uttamam yat yatva munaya sarve, hearing, knowing, cultivating, constantly hearing and meditating upon this transcendental knowledge. Muni, all great sages in the past, param siddhim ito gataha, param siddhim, they have attained the supreme perfection. What is that supreme perfection? To become transcendentally situated. That's from the very beginning. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is bringing Arjuna to this point, even from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the very well-known verse, Dehi nosmin yata dehi, understanding the Dehi, spirit soul within the body, which is Deha. So therefore this chapter here, the Lord of the heart, is when we know that we have within the heart the presence of the Lord, who is simply waiting for us to turn our attention to His, we can say, good counsel. So it means that we have to have this in the forefront. We have to be convinced. So this is interesting here. Shukadeva Goswami is mentioning here in this verse how the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. That's why Narada Muni was chastising Srila Vyasadeva. He spoke about so many things, but people will be allured to material things. In one, I believe it's Srila Jiva Goswami, one of our acharyas explains, why is it that in the Vedic literatures there's so much explanation about attaining or getting material pleasure. Let's say so much of discussion is there about heavenly planets. So it mentions how the reason it is there is because a vast majority of people cannot immediately take up. So they are recommended to follow certain, that is called the karma section of the Vedas, okay, if you're attached to sense gratification, but you should follow the regulated sense gratification. Just like in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, we cannot immediately, if we can, that is great, but most people cannot immediately stop completely all activities of sense gratification. So therefore, the system of regulated sense gratification. But regulated sense gratification will gradually help an individual rise to the higher level. But the aim is to actually come to the point of stopping all sense gratification, isn't it? Which is only possible when one takes up to the recommended process in the Shastra, which means when one takes up fully the process of devotional service, and at that time there is one will not feel or experience a need for a material sense gratification. Yeah. So the text is telling how the conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures. But actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Yeah. So therefore, simply to read or to study the Vedic literatures, that's also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Vedeshu Durlabham. Vedeshu Durlabham. It is very difficult simply by reading what is often referred to as the flowery language of the Vedas. It means by our own self, just like a small child, to begin walking, he needs assistance, he needs some help. So to understand about the real intent or the real purport of the Vedic literatures, one needs to have a bona fide spiritual master. So that is being explained here, how because there are many descriptions that will be confusing or bewildering, to the conditioned living entity. Yeah. So just to read the translation again. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. So then the question will be, why is that there? What is the answer?
As you mentioned, everybody is not that understanding. According to their desire, they are group.
Yeah, just like we know that there are Vedic literatures are presented for people in different modes of material nature. The 18 Puranas are divided, 6 for those in the mode of goodness, 6 for those in the mode of passion, 6 for those in the mode of ignorance. So according to everyone's situation, they can, idea is that they should follow something. They should follow, so therefore that verse is also explaining one should follow what is recommended in the Shastra, regardless of course, Bhagavatam teaches that even if we are in the lower modes of nature, still we should perform devotional service, isn't it? So there are the other sections in the Vedas that recommend regulated sense gratification. Bhagavatam is directly emphasizing the need to take up unmotivated devotional service, even if we have motivation, even if we have material desires. Kama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarabi trivena bhakti yogena. With great determination, we should take up to the process of devotional service. So reading the translation again, the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Yeah. Anything? Any question?
In Bhagavad Gita, you can see that second chapter whole is the Krishna explaining the difference between the matter and spirit. Second chapter.
Explaining about matter and spirit.
So Arjuna is the beyond of that, but to teach us, it shows that Arjuna is that Krishna tells to Arjuna that you are not in that slave. Then he start karma yoga. That's as I mentioned, Jiva Goswami, why they explain the Vedic literature. So all the people are not at the level.
Yes.
Gita also start like second chapter whole we can see that the matter and spirit. So Arjuna is not that level. Again he goes to karma yoga. This is. But my question is that if somebody has the material desires.
Everyone has material desires, practically.
So we are following according to Veda, or in Bhakti Yoga we have certain rules and regulations for the brahmachari, for the grihastha, because they have certain desires and all. So is it Varnashrama is following Veda or is it different section? Is it?
Whether Varnashrama is following Veda.
Yeah, because Veda is about since they have material desires, rules and regulations, it is not pure devotion.
Veda, as is mentioned here, there are so many sections, different levels in the Vedic literatures, and all of them are meant to gradually elevate the living entity. All of the instructions in the Vedas are meant to gradually purify the conditioned soul so that they can rise above these different modes of material nature. So even though one may be situated in lower modes of material nature, and Vedas may recommend certain activities of sense gratification, but that is regulated sense gratification. Just like there is section in the Vedas, those who are wanting to eat meat. So there are prescriptions that one should, if one is so attached to eating meat, then he has to follow a set of rules and regulations with the idea that after some time one will come to understand this is like very troublesome. For example, one according to Shastra, one should only eat or can only eat meat once a month. Because it's once a month that he offers on Amavasya, on a dark moon night. That's when he can actually, whoever is going to eat meat has to himself kill that animal. And there's a particular lower kind of animal, and one has to chant some particular mantra telling that now I am killing you, later you can kill me. All of these regulations are there to to ultimately discourage somebody from doing it, isn't it? So in the system of varnasrama, primarily varnasrama is also allowing for regulated, we can say, sense gratification, primarily within the grihastha ashram. The other ashramas, brahmachari life, vanaprastha and sannyas life are focused on renunciation, isn't it? So therefore, the system of varna and ashrama emphasize the, of course, in daiva varnasrama, what is emphasized is especially the practice of devotional service. Daiva varnasrama is based on bhakti, and as nicely explained, of course, in the Bhagavatam also, first canto of the Bhagavatam, those who practice bhakti, Vasudevi Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga, Prayojitaha, Janayati, Ashuvairagyam, Jnanam Sayada Haitukam. By practicing bhakti, one will learn gradually to become vairagya, to become detached, and will be cultivating knowledge simultaneously. So, because majority of living entities in the material world are influenced, are conditioned by these modes of material nature, the whole system of varnasrama is taking that into consideration, isn't it? And helping individuals to act according to their nature within one particular varna, and within, according to that varna, within a particular ashram, isn't it? So, yeah, the system of varnasrama is inducing people to gradually, actually that's the next verse tomorrow, just having it. The next verse tomorrow will be specifically explaining how we should learn to minimize our activities of sense gratification. We should learn to minimize our material necessities of life, which is the opposite of modern day philosophy, modern day understanding, because people are devoid of this basic understanding. People falsely think, people are totally convinced that the more I can accumulate material things, I will be happy. The more I can make money, so therefore people are endeavoring for getting a better job, getting promotion, etc., like that, or going to some place where they think they will be more happy. This verse here, of course, is telling that even such places as the heavenly planets, one cannot be happy there. No one can be happy anywhere within the material world, because it is not our real place, and we cannot. Therefore, yeah. So varnasrama is that ideal and perfect system. It is that scientific system that helps the conditioned souls actually become completely situated on the spiritual transcendental platform. Especially because of the presence of asram. It's not only varna. Varna is like the material, social duties or activities that we perform, but those varnas are meant to be performed within or connected with asram, isn't it? And all of the asrams, whether from the beginning of life, brahmachari life, the brahmachari ashram, or vanaprastha, or grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, all of them have the same objective, right? To cultivate transcendental knowledge, and in this way learn gradually more and more to become detached from the material world. We can all the way to become detached from the material world is to become attached to the spiritual world, isn't it? To the spiritual life. Yeah. So we do that by hearing all of these different explanations and instructions that are given in the Bhagavatam. And
but when we see according to percentage wise, Maharaj,
huh?
according to percentage wise, like is grihastha ashram and completely following the brahmachari ashram is means how much goes to means keep ourselves in a mode of means
What's the
if we see our in our parampara also there are many means guru means like our in our parampara like Bhakti Vinod Thakur he have family and most of the Maharaj have family like
Yes.
Prabhupada also have a full family.
Yes.
So how much is more relevant having a in a grihastha ashram, so it will help to
How much is what?
more means like a percentage wise how much it's more positive and how to it's look means how we follow this thing if we following the grihastha ashram, so how we follow this thing in a more proper way, so it's more means we are like what we say we are come to the more goodness to the bhakti level and we can do our bhakti in a proper way, so we can also become like a best of the best in the devotees. So
Your question is that even within the grihastha ashram, how to become ideal devotee?
yes,
How to become ideal devotee?
yes.
Yeah.
Because means is brahmachari is better than the when we consider as
Brahmachari ashram is a preparation for is a training period for everyone to either remain as a brahmachari or to practice spiritual life within the grihastha ashram. So because the vast majority of people um, need or have material needs. Everyone in the material world has basic material needs, some more than others. And of course, even it doesn't mean that someone who enters family life is a fallen soul. I mean, in one sense, we're all fallen souls because we're all here in the material world. We're all fallen souls.
Because we see in the parampara also, because there are many Guru Maharaj who have family, and they also attend the higher levels.
Yes, so it doesn't mean that one who is in family life cannot attain the highest level. And it doesn't mean that everyone who enters family life is attracted to sense gratification. We have many of our acharyas who are householders, as you rightly mentioned. So the point being that regardless of our position as either brahmachari, grihastha, or vanaprastha or sannyas, if one is fortunate to get proper association and proper direction, especially in one's younger life, then one will be successful regardless of which ashram he enters, isn't it? But it is, as we were discussing the other day, if one can do without the householder or grihastha ashram, Shastra recommends that one remain brahmachari. If one chooses to enter grihastha ashram, he can still make advancement in spiritual life. But of the two, it is recommended that if one can remain brahmachari, that is ideal. But regardless of which ashram one follows, the same goal and objective is there, and it is possible to attain perfection in all of the ashrams. Yeah. Okay, we can close here for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.